First of all, congratulations again for being selected as one of the finalists for the Power BI Global Database Championship. It's an amazing feat, right, guys? I remember having a conversation with you last year about why you didn't join because I've seen all your works. I've seen the reports and dashboards you've been building in Power BI there, and they all look amazing. So I was wondering that time why you didn't join. What made you decide to join this year, guys?
Three, two, one. Are you ready? Let's get this party started!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Fireside VisTalk. My name is Ollie, and together I'm here with Gus. We are front-end Power BI delivery engineers here at Insight Factory. This episode we will be just talking about anything data visualization related. How are you, Gus?
I'm good. How are you, Oliver?
I'm very good and I'm very excited about this conversation because I think you've done something pretty massive. So, first of all, congratulations again for being selected as one of the finalists for the Power BI Global Database Championship. It's an amazing feat, right, guys? I remember having a conversation with you last year about why you didn't join because I've seen all your works. I've seen the reports and dashboards you've been building in Power BI there, and they all look amazing. So I was wondering that time why you didn't join. What made you decide to join this year, Gus?
Thanks, Oliver. I appreciate your words. Actually, I guess at that point, I thought I wasn't prepared enough. I thought that the championship was only for really right skilled person. However, the championship is for everyone. You need to take the risks. Of course, you need to be prepared for the championship, but more than that, you need to have fun. So it was exactly what I did. I joined the championship to have fun, to learn, and to bring new techniques. I decided to join this time mainly as a personal and professional challenge. I was trying to really challenge myself. I was really keen to see how I perform under time pressures and time constraints. I use it to really learn and try new ideas and also show my skills inside the Power BI Microsoft community.
Amazing. Before we dive into what you have submitted, maybe let's talk about what exactly this competition is about.
Actually, it's a global competition where professionals from all over the world build dashboards using the same data set and the same brief to construct amazing visualizations and show your skills. Then the finalists were invited to go to FabCon, an annual event from Microsoft, to compete on stage with other three competitors.
Structure-wise, Gus, it composes of 3 rounds where different data sets will be given for each round, and then you have to submit it on a specific period of time, and then they will select a finalist from each
The
round.
first round was about urban livability. The dataset looked at urban livability across 12 cities over 10 years from 2015 to 2024. It includes 5 main areas: the livability index, housing affordability, public transport quality, green space, and emissions. The goal was not only to compare cities, but also to understand trends over time and see the trade-offs between quality of life, sustainability, and affordability.
So with all these data sets given, how do you specifically decide which kind of metrics do you need to include? What was the thought process in handling all this data set being given to you?
Yeah, from a data point of view, the model was simple and quite small. Organizers already provide a ready-to-use Power BI file template. So I followed a standard development process. First of all, I start reviewing the data and checking the formats and made small improvements in Power Query when needed using M code, mainly to keep the model clean and aligned with the final design, which I will talk about later. After that, I reviewed the data model. I start creating supporting tables like page parameters. And then I focused on building the base measures, which was the foundation for both analytical and visual measures.
I can totally relate on that because it's not something different from how we manage or handle client projects, don't we? But I think the key difference here is that when we are dealing with client projects, we mainly work closely with stakeholders. Whereas in this competition, you are pretty much free on everything you need to do. So does that make it more difficult or is it more easy handling something like this that doesn't really have a stakeholder?
Yeah, I guess it makes it easier because you have freedom to build following your principal strategy around the requirements, around the data, and even around the design. When we have stakeholders or on a real projects, real world projects, we should follow exactly the requirements, which most of the times is not about only about the design, also around the business rules, the company business rules, which affects the design, but also affects the whole data journey because you might need to tweak maybe the tables to be able to accommodate your design thinking or your design strategy by the end. And on this challenge was quite fun because I had the freedom and the liberty to play with and create all I need, you know. Of course, align with the requirements, respecting the requirements, all that was required, mainly with accessibility, which we already develop as a standard for our clients, but we have the liberty to play with and have fun.
All right, Gus, just before we dwell into what you have submitted, let's talk about the dataset first. So, when you first looked into the dataset, what really was the first thing that you've done? And maybe if you can share quickly any transformation or processes or cleanup that you have done.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the data set was quite small. We had only two tables. However, it missed some foundation supporting tables, which is, for example, a calendar table to support my time intelligence measures. As we had a lot of trending visuals were shown start date and end date, the most common and the best approach available is actually creating supporting tables such as Gene table. I also work and review all the columns to make sure the definitions and the column names was aligned with the purpose of the visuals. So instead of later rename all the labels inside my visuals, I
Mhm.
always prefer follow a framework where I review each column inside the data model and replace all the labels to match my business standards or convention names of the
Mhm.
client company, which is a part of our framework. We have a common labeling for all the columns. So I did that, and also I make sure all the columns was set on the right formatting, which means if I have a date column, it need to be set as a date field. You know, if I have a decimal column, I need to set it as a decimal. I think I did all these basic steps that actually makes total difference for your end product and performance as well.
Great tip, guys. Let's jump into the most exciting part. Let's go through the design thinking process that you brought into this submission. I can see that you put a lot of cool stuff, animation, the choice of colors, the layout, and all that stuff. Let's unpack all these elements and then share with us what was the decision made for each of these elements.
Actually, from a design point of view, the main goal was to make the report easy to use for everyone. So then we started with a light and clean visual style using an enterprise style color palette. So you can see we have shades of blue only. And I also kept only a few visuals on each page to avoid information load. And this actually helps to focus on the visual hierarchy. So users know where to look first and can explore the report by themselves.
That's really a good point there. I think this submission is like there's like a bit of balance between the design and the key information itself without, using a lot of cognitive load from our brain because instantly I can see the key metrics that you want to tell the users and also some trends and then some options around the different metrics. You've chosen the color blue and red in here as well. So why made those choices?
Yeah, actually, the colors help you to understand an outcome before you actually read the data. So our brain process colors before numbers. So which means we should use colors with purpose and not a decoration. So you can see it actually the blue it's doing the work, it's combining with the whole page theme. However, the red here is actually meaning something.
So this is not really just about jumping into Power BI and then create those colors that you think are right, but also really having an understanding of the different metrics, the
You're
different
right.
business rules, which is similar to what we are doing in our client projects. We have to engage stakeholders because we are not the domain expert. Let's say if we are working on a financial report, for example, we are not a finance expert, but we somehow need to understand how this financial domain works in order for us to visualize gaps, improvements, or anything that they would like to know of. I also noticed that you embedded a tutorial in this dashboard. Was this part of the requirements? And can you just give us a walkthrough of how does it work?
Actually, the tutorial wasn't part of the requirement. However, the requirements was to add accessibility features. And then the main one was creating alt text for each visual for people with disability, and also tab order when you sort your visuals order on a sequence where you can just tab on your keyboard and it follow the right flow, let's say. The big part of the, let's say, the design thinking was really adding context. So I built a guided tutorial where when you hit this button, you can see we have a welcome card
Mm.
and explain the next steps. And then you start navigating and walking through the page dashboard. I explain exactly about the metrics, what do you need to perform to get insights on it. For example, this piece here is selecting a metric, click any metric card to dive deeper. So which means now, before when you join the dashboard for the first time, you should ask, is this a image? Is this a button? But now, when you perform the tutorial, you'll be able to explore more and get more from the features I develop here.
I think this is a great way of bridging the gap between giving context and definition of the dashboard itself, especially for users who don't have that understanding of some business context, for example. And I can totally relate about this one because more often what we normally do is we build a user guide or a manual and then we just publish that somewhere like in SharePoint and then we just
You're right.
produce a link in the dashboard itself. But here, the tutorial is embedded on the dashboard itself, which is making it more convenient for users to
You're
navigate
right.
and at the same time understanding the purpose of the dashboard. That's really great.
Uh,
I will definitely apply this to the future.
yeah, you should. And also, after this dashboard feedback, most of people really like and inspire a lot on the Microsoft community around this framework. I start this kind of embedded tutorial before at Insight Factory. We had developed similar solutions for our clients, which is quite exciting. So we actually show to our users, to our clients, we got feedbacks, they love it, and then I was able to really validate the idea, the usability, and then I use the positive feedback to apply the two chips on the championship submission.
And you talk about accessibility as well, Gus, because I think when we are designing dashboards, most of the developers sometimes we neglect other users as well, and we just focused on a certain group of users. But with accessibility, it's getting more inclusive, like having an empathy on other users, those people with vision impairment and some disability. Having this tutorial plus those tooltips and alt text, I think really help those people. There's another cool thing that I've noticed in this dashboard, Gus. So that's hovering on those KPI cards. What technique did you actually use?
I call it like a hybrid dashboard because I use partial visuals from native Power BI, and some of them I really build it from scratch. I use HTML and CSS embed on my DAX measure, which can create effects like this hover over kick guide. So this is other interesting thing because on top of the guide tutorials, we also have this small chips when you hover the cards that actually add context on top of our cards. So you are not only reading the card alone, you read the card, you got your conclusions, you got your interpretation, and then you hover your card, and then you can really wrap up your analysis, because I brought context to the card. The card is not alone, only showing the number itself. I usually adapt it for many visuals. You can see here on top of this table, we have other title showing some contextual information, adding on top of the table, which is pretty good. And it was achievable using HTML embedded into our DAX measure, which is, how can I say, it's infinite possibilities. You can build whatever you want. You really have a creativity flair here to play with and bring your clients the best solutions possible.
I really, really like it. And I think that also remove those clutter, but at the same time, bringing the definition of different elements of your dashboard without too much distraction to the user. I really like that approach. I also noticed that your matrix used like some form of pagination. Can you tell us more about that?
I was trying to apply it before, and I think it's a great option for usability and user experience. So instead of a long list to scroll down, I create some buttons. The technique is pretty simple. It actually use a selected value and a small workaround to make it happen. In the next episodes, I will cover and I will create a tutorial to share with you the whole framework, how to achieve. But now, as I mentioned before, I use the championship to test new ideas, to bring fresh solutions. So now, as I validate and it seems everyone loves it, now I'm going to replicate it in different projects and for our own clients.
I will definitely use the same technique moving forward. Let's go to the next page, the
Yep.
performance tab there. I've seen this and you put something that is not really native. in Power BI, you put this radar chart. This is really
Yeah,
cool.
I call it like spider chart. So the spider chart actually I built using HTML and CSS as well. It's not a native visual from Power BI, which means I had to, let's say, handcraft the entire visual to accommodate my visualization purposes. So I own the code, which means we can customize it as per our needs. Let's say I don't have 5 metrics, I have 6. I might need to tweak the code to be able to accommodate my reality of my data. This page was opposite the other one, the executive summary, because this page actually shown each metric individually. So I brought all the 6 metrics we are evaluating here, and then you can quickly understand which metric is performing better. The same cards here, we also have the same approach, HTML and CSS with animations, which make it more smooth, more interactive, and clear for the user to understand what we are looking here. What means, for example, low values. You can see here, lower values indicate better affordability, what I said before. If we have a special rule embed into our color coding or inside our visual, we should bring why we are showing red or blue and why we decide to display that. So I've been applying this technique in most of my projects, and I really like it. Makes the report uh, like a motion on the report, a good experience. But on top of the good experience, it actually brings context and additional information to support your decision.
Absolutely. It's like there's really a striking balance between the key information you need, at the same time, not too distracting from the eye. It's easy to follow, it's easy to read from the get-go. You can understand what this particular page is trying to tell you. Amazing, Gus.
Let's jump to the ranking page. The performance one, we looked at single city, single year, and we have each metric for that specific city. However, the ranking page actually shown where I am, where the selected city at the moment when compared to the other cities. So I
Mm.
decided to create something following similar to this one, however, is splitting by cities. And then instead of complicate things here, I decided to bring like a native bar chart, staked bar chart here with a color highlighting, which makes it quickly and easy to understand. We are talking about Briarport, actually highlighted here in blue.
How
Here.
is it being ranked among other cities as well based
Yeah,
on
right.
different metrics? I really love this. I mean, what not to love about this dashboard? And quickly, I can quickly tell from this page as well how Briarport is performing. Where is it at that particular metric?
There is also just let's say a chair on top that we haven't talked yet. I have created like a notifications panel. You can see this ring flashing here. So when you click on it, you actually has more context. As I mentioned, my designing thinking was about create a clean visual, but on top of clean visuals, create additional context to really help you understand what's going on. So I decided to create this notification panel that actually changes dynamically as per your selection, city, and year, which brings additional context, additional information, again, to support your decision makers.
That's amazing. Do
Right,
you want
right.
to talk about the last page there, Gus? The temporal.
Yeah, the last page was quite simple, but still important. Here is actually, I decided to create a dedicated page only for the temporal analysis, where we land here the start date and end date, and then we show the current city selected across the benchmark, or better, the average of all the other cities. So you can actually compare where you are over time against the global average. So this was pretty good. I also applied the titles and subtitles supporting your visual analysis. As I mentioned before, this was the goal. My first thought was I need to bring together some textual fields. If you have a facility with charts and graphs, you can quickly hover over each point and understand on your own. If you need something quickly, you can just read the title and read the subtitle, and you have the whole context pretty quickly.
That's really awesome, Gus. Thanks for sharing. So I think you mentioned about the challenges you face entering this competition. I know it's like there's a time constraint. There's also like, the freedom, which can be challenging because you have to put everything that you can into this dashboard. Can you tell us about what's your biggest challenge you face and how you overcome that?
I wouldn't say there was one big challenge because the data set was quite simple. But one thing that needed extra attention was handling different business rules. We had 6 metrics, but 2 of them, the negative values was positive meaning, and the others negative values was what supposed to be negative meaning. And then which means I had to like most metrics follow the usual color logic. Green for good results and red for bad ones. But some metrics work it on the opposite way, as I showed you before, the affordability and I guess transit score.
Mm.
This means that I had to review those measures again when I was almost to submit my file. I post a sneak peek on my LinkedIn from page one, and one guy comment on the post saying that metric was supposed to be blue and not red. So this was exactly what I said in terms of business rules. This is a good point because this need to be very clear when you are planning your development or really on real world when you are dealing with companies. We had this every day at Insight Factor, but it's not about, hey, create a conditional color when it's negative, you add red. When it's positive, you add blue or green. It's not simple like that because each metric has different meanings.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's where stakeholder engagement, or in this case, research and validation, really becomes critical. Not just at the end of every project, but right at the beginning, right? So we work across so many domains, so many industries, and we're not experts in all of them. But, understanding the rules and context is really non-negotiable. I also love that you mentioned the Power BI community. So having access to that collective knowledge is incredibly powerful. Right. So just before we wrap up, Gus, is there one key takeaway you'd like listeners to walk away with from your journey?
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, you should make it simple. I've been seeing a lot of dashboards on the market, on social media, that has a lot of colors to make it beautiful, and it was beautiful. However, I think you should keep it simple. Use light colors, use shades of gray, and really use red when you want to mean bad for something, because we lost the purpose. Instead of you use the color to drive and to help you understand the number or understand something that is happening at that point in time, you are actually just using red to decorate the dashboard. So you lost the capability. Use colors with purpose, and that's it.
That's really, such a strong takeaway, Gus. So what listeners expect from the next episode of this talk?
We are actually planning to create some tutorial sessions showing deeply what we do at Insight Factor, how we do. We want to create this channel, an environment where you can ask questions, where we can learn together and share knowledge. So yeah, pretty happy to be here with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks for sharing your experience, your thinking, and your craft with us today. And once again, congratulations on making it to the finals. Best of luck at Atlanta. I really have no doubt that you'll absolutely nail it. And to everyone listening, don't forget to subscribe and follow us here on Fireside VisTalk. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.
Before we wrap up, a quick word from Insight Factory.
We're a leading provider of data and AI solutions, and we represent the next generation of data and AI enablement companies. We're fully vertically integrated, delivering the complete stack, including platform, products, people, solutions, production support, and methodology, all working together to help organizations move from ideas to real production deployed outcomes. And if you're earlier in the journey, we also help with the strategy piece, from setting the vision and value case, through to the roadmap and operating model to make it stick. If you'd like to learn more or explore how we could help, reach out, we'd love to chat. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.